Hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn Live. I am making sure that we're getting ourselves shared everywhere. I'm excited about today's topic because it is one that everybody he keeps asking about. I know we touched a little bit last week on blood sugar and cortisol and menopause, and we are going to dive in today because this conversation, you guys, for the next 30 minutes that we're going to be here is a game changer if you are navigating midlife, if you're a woman in 45, 65, in the perimenopausal, menopausal, even early postmenopausal years. Let's think about it. Have you ever snapped at someone you loved and blamed it on your hormones, right? Or have you ever suddenly found yourself like with cravings that are just like out of control, like you can't soothe your hunger? Or maybe you found yourself gaining belly fat, even if you're eating healthier than maybe you've ever eaten before. So what I want to talk about today is most women especially will assume that it's their hormones during menopause, and it is hormones that are shifting. But today I'm going to show you how managing blood sugar is managing your hormones. I know so many of our clients come in and they're asking about, bioidentical hormones. They're asking about all these quick fixes to get through menopause. I mean, come on, Facebook is filled with all these quick fixes, or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, wherever you're watching this from. But today we're going to talk about the shifts that you can do to start implementing immediately in order to get yourself more energized, get your hormones stable, get yourself clear-headed. And of course, for all of you who are on here today, if you type blood sugar in the comments, and we're watching the comments section here in a second as I go and open it. Hello, Katie, who says blood sugar cravings never stop. But if you type blood sugar in the comment section, we will reach out to you to get your email. Unless we already have it, we'll reach out to you to get your email, and we will send you an email with our blood sugar guide for menopause, which I think is going to be very helpful for you guys. It has got a lot of the different steps and action items that you can, like I said, begin to implement right away. So Carissa, I know this blood sugar thing comes up. I know the hormone thing comes up in our coaching sessions. What are you hearing in coaching sessions with our clients with regard to this?
Kind of even what Katie just commented. Sugar cravings never stop, or I'm doing everything right and nothing is budging.
Yeah.
Or, I'm eating this and I'm not eating that. Why aren't I losing weight? Or why am I still tired? Or, I've had a couple clients ask about bioidentical hormones lately too. And it's a good question to ask, and it's something, to inform yourself. But I feel like having a conversation like we're having can really shift how people feel in their bodies, right? Because so many symptoms we brush off, right? Like the irritability you were talking about, the poor sleep, the cravings, we think there's something wrong with us, or the brain fog. And they are actually all connected to the blood sugar swings and the cortisol overload, which then impacts the hormonal imbalances. So I really like to explain to clients, because I don't think many realize how they're all connected, right? When blood sugar spikes and then it crashes, and we're kind of doing this all day long, like when we're getting up and we have no time for movement or no time for water, and we're just drinking our coffee, your body sees it as a stress response. Absolutely. And then we keep cortisol high all day, even if you're not mentally stressed. Right. Yeah. And I think over time that cortisol dysregulation starts to pull on the thyroid and even the sex hormones. Right. A lot of women come in, they're like, my libido is just
tanked, or
just done.
Sex. Yeah. All of those things. So I want to be really clear, because you said something that was important. All of our hormones are interconnected, right? I like to think of them as like this beautiful symphony. And we often think, like, when we hear hormones, a lot of people think, some don't even think blood sugar, right? Or cortisol. They're just kind of thinking.
I never did.
Yeah, you're just kind of thinking female sex hormones if you're a
Mhm.
female, or male sex hormones if you're a male. But the truth is, it's way beyond that. And then when we throw the wrench in perimenopause and menopause, which should be a really nice, easy, gentle transition, like, hey guys, we were designed to go through perimenopause and menopause, and our
Mhm.
bodies were ingeniously designed. I don't question that at all. Yet we want to tinker and do this and that. But the reason why things get hairy is because we step into perimenopause and menopause already out of balance, especially when it comes to cortisol. So, with perimenopause and menopause, your estrogen and your progesterone levels, what happens is they begin to change and they fluctuate, right? And that is a piece of the puzzle. But what's rarely talked about is how, prior to your estrogen levels coming down, estrogen played a really protective role in insulin sensitivity, right? So it's playing a
Mhm.
protective role in your blood sugar regulation. So what you may have gotten away with, eating tons of candy bars as a teenager, is not going to fly anymore as you're moving into menopause and perimenopause. So as your estrogen drops, your cells, they don't handle blood sugar as well anymore. And as a result, we end up with spikes and crashes. And then all of a sudden we have all this inflammation that shows up. And so between estrogen and insulin and cortisol and thyroid and even leptin, oh, that should be our topic for next week. Leptin and ghrelin. We'll talk about those, because those leptin and ghrelin, that's your hormones that make you feel hungry or satiated. So we'll make a note of that, right? So anyway, you guys, all these different hormones, they're playing together. But if our blood sugar is already off balance, or in the case of a symphony, if it's already out of tune, then the whole entire orchestra sounds off. And that's why we feel irritable, exhausted, and then we feel like we're gaining weight. We feel like our body is betraying us. So our sleep gets interrupted, we get the mood swings, we get the brain fog, all of those things. And yes, it's hormonally related, but these are also all signals that our blood sugar is in chaos. And so, if we're actually going to manage these things, then we have to address the blood sugar and the blood sugar imbalances that are taking place. Otherwise, we're not going anywhere. So, you could take as many bioidentical hormones as you want under the sun. A, we don't entirely know how safe. B, they have to be really properly and ongoingly managed. C, there is an expense to that as well. So, all of those things aside, but even still, it doesn't address what's happening with the blood sugar if you're not paying attention to the blood sugar. And Carissa, you hit the nail on the head. So there is a big connection as well to our stress, our cortisol, and our blood sugar levels, right? So if you're stressed out all the time, even if you're eating perfectly, right, you can still be messing around with your blood sugar. And you guys have heard me say a million times, you may have a normal A1C on your blood work. And A1C is the average of your blood sugar numbers for like the last 3 months. But even your glucose number, which is your glucose from your blood in that moment in time that test was taken, that blood test was taken. But if you're spiking all the way up and you're crashing all the way down, the average doesn't manage your spikes and your crashes. So it's still going to look like, oh, okay, well, my blood sugar may show up that my A1C is normal. Meanwhile, you've got all this insulin sensitivity going on. So stress now comes in, right? We get really stressed out. And by the way, those of you who are not eating enough, one of the things we see a lot with our clients is they're under eating as they're in menopause and perimenopause because they're scared of gaining weight. But if you're now stressing out your body, your cortisol spikes. Okay. When your cortisol spikes, so does your blood sugar. So think cortisol, blood sugar, they both go up together. Now what happens? So as your blood sugar as your blood sugar goes up, insulin now comes in, right? Because that's what it's supposed to do. Insulin comes in, it unlocks the key to the cells so that the blood sugar is shuttled in, so it's not wreaking havoc in your bloodstream. Okay. Now, insulin comes in and it throws off your estrogen and your progesterone. And now your estrogen and your progesterone are even further off of balance. And now you've got more sleep, more cravings, and here we go again. Like we're back to more stress again because we're stressed out. So it is a spiral. right? And if you're having night sweats or insomnia or you're crashing at 3 p.m., these are all symptoms that your cortisol and blood sugar are misfiring. It's not just low estrogen. And that is something that I really want to stress, because so many of our clients that come in, they're like, well, what do you think about just taking estrogen? That is not getting to the underlying problem. So even in menopause, okay, what happens is your stress hormone, your stress glands, right? Your stress organ, your adrenal glands, they take over much of the hormone production, right? Ovaries shut down, adrenals are now the key player. So if they're constantly pumping out cortisol, then what happens is your entire endocrine system is disrupted. And remember, they're all interconnected. So now you've got like all this chaos going on. So what's most important to regulate your hormones during perimenopause and menopause, right? To mitigate all those symptoms, including weight gain, it is about adrenal support and blood sugar balance. And those guys go hand in hand in midlife. And yes, you probably need to pay more attention than you have at any other point in time, given that. Does that make sense?
That was really beautiful. I have to say, it was very clear. But I love what you said about estrogen too being protective, because I think a lot of people don't realize that as we shift into like the perimenopause and the menopause, like I think you said something very great. Like it doesn't cause the chaos, it just reveals what's already out of sync.
Yeah.
So if you're someone that's already dealing with blood sugar swings or high cortisol because before the transition starts, then yeah, it's going to feel more intense, right? But I don't think it's about blaming ourselves or even searching outward for something else. I think it's just about rebalancing the rhythm. And that's why I love what we do here, right? We're not just slapping just a supplement on it or chasing just one hormone, like you said, where women are like, can I just, do estrogen? We're kind of helping the whole symphony come
Yes.
back into tune.
Yeah. That's so important, because you think about, right? Like, so listen, we live in a quick fix culture. Everybody's looking for this one quick fix. Oh, let me just go take some bioidenticals. But that's not, ooh, my cell phone is on. That's not the way to actually get to the underlying root cause to change it. And so if all we're doing is putting a band-aid on our menopausal, perimenopausal symptoms, then all we're going to get is a band-aid effect. And that's why, people, we have a lot of clients who are like, well, tell me more about South Bay Wellness, and what does South Bay Wellness do, and how do your programs work? And oh, do you have hormones? And I'm always like, listen, I've been in practice for over 17 years now, and we have never used bioidentical hormones. And our clients lose weight, okay? Their hot flashes go away, their moods balance, all of these things happen. But the key thing is making sure that all of those pieces are in line, because when they're not in line, things go off balance. The body doesn't do anything by accident. Okay. And yeah, sometimes it's harder to bounce back from things than others. Right. So for some of our clients, it's like they'll get on their regimens and their protocols, and they're like 100% following through, and they're able to, lose 15, 20 pounds really fast. And then we might have other clients who they've had years of cortisol and blood sugar imbalance. Right. And it might take them a little longer, but it's really about where your body's at and how things need to actually go ahead and get rebalanced. And we have to be honest with ourselves sometimes too. Sometimes we think we're eating healthy, think we're doing the right things, but we're not tracking, we're not paying attention. And so while it might seem like, when we actually go down and take a look at like, oh my gosh, I'm under eating, or hey, maybe I'm overeating, or hey, you know what? My diet is like 90% carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not bad, by the way. Let's be clear, right? Junk food is bad. We got that. But carbohydrates, whole grains, quinoa, brown rice, these things are not bad. Sweet potatoes, they're not bad. In fact, you need some. If you're a perimenopausal, menopausal woman, you need some carbohydrates in your diet, especially if you're working out. And you have to work out during perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, right? Because the only way your body builds bone without that extra support from the estrogen is through working out, through strength training. So you need carbs. So we find a lot of people come into our practice and they're doing all these crazy things, right? They're starving themselves, okay? Or they're not paying attention to their body's natural rhythms and they're under eating, or maybe they think that they're eating really healthy, but they're eating massive quantities of, I don't know, fruit all day long and not getting in any protein or not getting in any healthy fats. So I'll go back to the symphony. It's not just a symphony with our hormones, but it is a symphony with our diet and our lifestyle, right? So let's go back to that cortisol. If we are always stressed out, things aren't going to budge. They're not going to change, And so I know, Carissa, you and I, we talk all the time. We talk all the time about, stress relieving habits like deep breathing, going outside, getting grounding, being connected to the earth, being out in the sun. We talk about meditation. We talk about, just walking, finding other ways. Those things they're pivotal if you're going to come back into balance. And I always tell people, I have a lot of colleagues that I love and respect, and they do use bioidentical hormones in their practice. I've never had to do that though, because when you actually put all those other pieces together, everything balances out. Now, I think we're pretty unique, Carissa, in that we spend a lot of time. We're so devoted to our clients that that's part of the other thing is we can look for those underlying things, right? We're not just giving you there are some supplements out there, for example, like the Radiant Woman from Premier Research Labs. That is a good, supplement, postmenopausal, so on and so forth. But if your adrenal glands aren't supportive, it's like lipstick on a pig, right? It is not going to deliver to you what it is that you actually want. So all these things tie together and they're really important. Those of you who are watching, remember, put blood sugar into the chat and we will send you our blood sugar guide. I actually created it in preparation for tonight. It's called Balance Your Blood Sugar in Menopause, the 6 daily shifts to support your hormones naturally. So type blood sugar in there and we'll make sure that we get that out for you.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen it so many times. Like you said, like 2 women come in around the same age, maybe one's in perimenopause, maybe the other's in menopause, and they have completely different responses, right? One starts sleeping better, shedding weight quickly. The other starts like struggling a little bit a few months in. But I think it's important to reiterate, it's not because something's wrong with her. It's just that her body has more to work through. And I love that you brought up the honesty part. Because so many of us think we're doing all the right things, and we might be in a few areas.
yeah.
But when we kind of like zoom out and we realize we're skipping meals or running on coffee, not tracking, or accidentally living in like carbs without enough protein or fat to ground us,
Yeah.
you can kind of really see what's going on with the body, right? And it's just about awareness, because once we see it, then we can start to shift it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. In our programs, those of you who are clients of South Bay Wellness, this. Those of you who are not, our programs are highly structured to give you a lot of support. And the reason being is that mindset plays a role. So the thing is, one thing that's often left out is consistency. Right? Sometimes it's just, if you're just consistent with one thing, that can move the dial. But if you're like, I'm going to try this today and I'm going to try that tomorrow and I'm going to try this the next day and I'm going to try that the next day, but you don't maintain any semblance of consistency, you're not going to get the results. Consistency is one of the most important things. It's like the same thing. So a lot of our clients will give them, full spectrum supplement protocols, right? Those protocols are designed to have everything in the body specifically balanced. So if you leave a piece out, that balance becomes imbalanced. So the effectiveness drops down a little bit. And I don't know about you, but like if I'm going to put my effort into something, I want the big result. But that requires bringing all the different pieces together and being consistent. And I think that is too where a lot of women struggle. And that's, Carissa, that's probably our biggest role. Like, listen, I'm no rocket scientist. I know just as much as other functional medicine practitioners know, right? But the way that we use the True Wellness framework, the way that we integrate all the pieces, that's actually what produces the result.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say too, because it got me thinking, what's so amazing about these phases, because I know most of us feel like crap or we dislike that we're going through perimenopause or menopause. But I think that, from my understanding, just on an energetic level, is that they're actually designed to be a time of like deep wisdom and power. And
Yes.
I feel like, our body is shifting, yes, but it's shifting into more clarity, into less tolerance for the things that drain us, into a rhythm that's actually meant to protect you, right? The problem isn't our bodies, it's the world not teaching us how to support it through the transition, right?
Yes.
And once we know how to support the blood sugar and the cortisol, I think everything starts to fall into place. And there's so many simple things you could do, like right after you get off this lunch and learn.
Yeah, we're going to go through those in a second.
Yeah.
But I love what you said, right? Because this is a beautiful time in life. And think about it.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be our wise woman time. Now
Mhm.
imagine you're entering your wise woman time, like completely stressed out, running yourself ragged. There's no space and opportunity for that to really come through. And, hundreds of years ago, we didn't have the same kind of stressors like we actually have now. We weren't addicted to our phones. We weren't being brought into a trance state with the scroll. Our minds weren't taking in all this information. Like, how many times you don't even realize that your body is in a tense state? Maybe it's from watching a movie. Maybe it's from scrolling Facebook. Maybe it's from hearing about current events like, holy crap, right? Maybe it's
Yeah.
because you're thinking about current events, or we've got issues with communication in our world now. People have forgotten how to relate to one another, right? Or you got your keyboard warriors who are like rude as can be versus like they would never say those things in person. It's just kind of on the keyboard and you're like, gosh, what is this world coming to? But that level of stress, it takes us down, right? And so we need to think about that, like you said, like even on that energetic level, when we come into perimenopause, we come into menopause, when we take that time to slow down, to pay attention to our body, to really, have that time to take care of ourselves. Listen, we're not bearing children anymore. Now it's time to us to also focus that energy and intention inside. It's a real game changer,
Mhm.
real game changer. So yeah, those of you who are listening in, you can drop blood sugar. I see Braden there and Katie. We'll send those to you. What we're going to do if we don't have your email is we will reach out to you to get your email address, or you can direct message us with your email address. And we'll send you via email the file that you're looking for. So we'll send you the PDF on blood sugar and menopause, and that's our gift to you, because these are really important things, you guys. So first, I want to talk about, Crystal. Let's talk about things that spike blood sugar, and then we'll talk about how to stabilize blood sugar, and we're going to do that all in the next
In five
couple of
minutes.
yeah. So you want to think about what's causing the blood sugar roller coaster, right? Are you skipping meals? Are you eating too late at night? Eating late at night, oh my God, it is one of those things that will mess with your cortisol levels, mess with your digestion. Sometimes I think it is even better to go to bed hungry than to eat right before you go to bed. Okay, think about it. That food is rotting, right?
Mhm.
The anus, it's rotting while you're sleeping because your digestion has to shut down. And then your digestion's got food in there, so it's trying to fire up. Then you can't sleep. Then you have nightmares. Those of you who have nightmares, take a look at what time you ate the last thing that night. Okay. Coffee on an empty stomach, that is going to spike your cortisol. I had a mentor, and when he was younger, he had a friend who worked in a morgue, And he would shadow his friend in the morgue because he enjoyed kind of looking at the bodies and diving in. And they always knew who those avid coffee drinkers were by their shriveled adrenal glands. Okay. So
Mhm.
just food for thought, not to mention what the coffee does to your GI system. How about healthy granola bars or fruit smoothies? Right? People are having smoothies with banana and mango and pineapple, and they're having them to start their day. You're spiking your blood sugar, right? It's loaded with sugars. The granola bars, they're loaded with sugars, you guys.
Mhm.
Um, the other important thing is having a breakfast that's not loaded with sugar, right? Or having a low protein breakfast. How many of you are just having toast and jam, for example, or grabbing a banana? Just grabbing a banana in the morning as your breakfast is going to spike your blood sugar. So got to pay attention, because when you spike your blood sugar, then that ends up being a crash, and then you get brain fog, then you're cranky, then you're craving more sugar, you're forgetful, and the whole cycle completes. It's like one of my clients called it emotional whiplash. And it's kind
Mm.
of what it is, right? But really, that emotional whiplash, what was happening for her was her blood sugar was swinging wildly throughout the day. So those are all things to pay attention. And of course, regular stress. If you're waking up and you're crabby first thing in the morning and you hate the world and you're running around complaining about everything, rather than having a couple minutes of solitude and gratitude and no stress. So fix your morning routine if you're getting stressed out. Those of you who have kids, if the morning is crazy because you're getting everybody out, figure out what you need to put in place to shift that, because that is so important. So, Carissa, let's give him here in the last few minutes. Let's talk about how we can balance blood sugar naturally. And we've got a lot of, part of working with clients for so many years, Carissa and I, we've got a lot of tips and tricks in the toolbox here that make a difference. And of course, you guys, if you're struggling with your blood sugar, you're struggling with your habits, then you need to be working with someone one-on-one to work through why that is happening, right? And you can always book in a discovery call with, it'll usually be Carissa or I who takes your discovery call if you're like, hey, I need help. I know I need to get this under control. And for those of you who have just joined in, if you put blood sugar there in the comment section, we will go ahead and send you, what did I call it? I got to remember what I call it. The Balance Your Blood Sugar in Menopause, 6 daily shifts to support your hormones naturally. That is your gift for being here and listening to today's Lunch and Learn. So, Carissa, I've done a lot of talking. Give us some of those tips for balancing your blood sugar.
Well, I think the first thing that's very important is to track your patterns, your
Yes.
mood, your energy, your dips, your cravings, and sleep, because it'll tell you a lot.
Yes.
And then I always suggest to clients something very simple: eat within 60 minutes of waking up to ground that cortisol,
Yes.
and if you, yes, protein, fiber. And if you don't have time for a savory breakfast, make a very nutrient dense smoothie is okay. I would do like low glycemic fruit like berries instead
Mhm.
of the other fruits that were mentioned.
Yeah.
Never skip protein, right? Especially at breakfast and lunch.
Mhm.
I always say after you wake up and have some warm water, gently move around, a little walking, a little stretching, anything that just signals safety in your body and gets it moving. And it doesn't have to be much. 5-10 minutes is okay. And then front load your day with food. Like you said, like eat earlier, less at night to reduce that cortisol output. And something that keeps me from snacking at night is knowing that it's rotting in my stomach. It's kind of icky in my brain. I'm like, ah. And something I always see with clients a lot too is they're fasting.
Yeah.
Don't fast aggressively, especially during like the hormone transitions, unless you're working one on one with a practitioner. Um, and then, just pairing your carbs with fiber, fat, and protein that slows blood sugar spikes, and just breathing before meals, right? Like just calming, 3 deep breaths can help calm cortisol, helps improve digestion. And these are all simple things that you don't need to go buy. You don't need to do. You're just kind of developing your rhythm and seeing where you're at. And they're super helpful. I mean, they're really a game changer. And I know it seems kind of silly because you're like, oh, eat 60 minutes, after I wake up. But yes, never skip protein. Yes. Move gently. Yes. Those really help.
Yeah, and you're right, Carissa. These things are important, and I want to just point out to everybody too. Like, just because your friend is doing something doesn't mean that that thing
Mm,
works for you, right? Just because you saw something on Instagram or TikTok doesn't mean that that thing works specifically for you. Like, you want to test and, like you said, track and pay attention to what
mhm,
your body signals are, because your chemistry is unique, right? Your body has its own chemistry, and figuring out how to work with that is important, and the other thing too, guys, is just move. And this is such a ticket for me, because I spend so much time here in front of the computer working with
mhm,
clients and doing stuff, that I have to remind myself, like, get up during the middle of the day, go for a walk. It's so important. I think you hit the nail on the head, Carissa, when you said you want your body to feel safe,
yeah.
right? You want your body to feel safe. You want her to know that you're working with her, not against her. Okay?
Mhm,
And so that the breathing, the stress relief, the nourishment, all of that is important. Even just closing your eyes sometime during the day, taking a deep breath and saying, I love you.
mhm.
How many times do you do that? Right? We're usually so inside of our heads going on all these things. And I know some of you are probably really self critical, because I catch myself in those patterns too. But
Mhm.
those things all make a really big difference.
Yeah, your body's wise, right? And it's talking to us. And I try to tell people too, and keep myself reminded, like, it doesn't want to be pushed. It
Yeah.
doesn't need all of this stuff. Like, it just need to be heard and connected to. And once you start stabilizing things and getting into a rhythm, maybe it's just eating breakfast with protein and fiber. Maybe it's walking after meals. Maybe it's noticing when you're truly hungry. But once you start stabilizing and getting into that rhythm, your blood sugar and your cortisol will start to come down. And then that overwhelm starts to melt and
Yes.
things just start to feel in balance. Remember, like you said, your body's just really wise and it's just sending out signals. It's like a text message.
Yeah. And you got to ask yourself, so those of you who are, I know a lot of our clients, they're highly busy, successful professionals. They're
Mm-hmm.
out there every day getting stuff done. They're the person that people rely on. Like, just remember, there is no problem or conflict big enough for you to sacrifice your health. So if that means you've got to step away, you've got to bring yourself to the bathroom, you've got to take some deep breaths where there's nobody else around, then you do things like that, right? And you guys, pay attention. Like I said, there is no one size fits all protocol or approach for people, right? Your hormone stage, your metabolic type, your adrenal health, your underlying imbalances, your history, all of those play a role. I mean, that's why we have the true wellness framework that we apply with all of our clients in our practice, because we've got to look at adrenal patterns, we've got to look at hidden inflammation, we've got to look at gut and liver health, right? We've got to find the energetic and emotional root causes so that we can really tailor a plan that works with your body, not against it. So that's I think the keys to the kingdom right there. I mean, what are those things that trigger you? I'll tell you, right? One trigger that I'm working on in my life is when my children leave all their dishes in the sink. Right? I hate nothing more than waking up with a sink full of dishes, because I'm ready to start my morning, and then I'm like, oh crap, now I'm off schedule because I got to do this, and I'm still working on that. But we all have triggers like that. Like, what are your triggers? And none of those things, right? The dishes in the sink is not worth the cost of my health, and I got to remind myself. And guys, nobody's perfect, but it takes the awareness to begin to actually start having changes, right? Awareness and consistency.
And I
So
love what you said too, like just about like, we're high powered women, we're taking care of so many things with work and personal and our family. And it reminded me when you said it, that analogy that I heard a while ago about the lighthouse. The
mhm.
lighthouse doesn't chase boats. It doesn't jump into the waves to save everyone. It kind of just simply stands strong and anchored and radiant so others can kind of find their way. in the storm. And that's what happens when you start to regulate your body, right?
Yeah,
When your blood sugar stabilizes, your cortisol comes, and your hormone finds that rhythm, you become that lighthouse, steadying yourself, calming your body. And by showing up that way, you actually do the same for others without losing ourselves in the process.
I love that. That is just, it is really spot on, right? You want to
Yeah,
be a beacon for all you people pleasing women out there. Of
myself included at times.
course, yeah. So, well, ladies, I hope that we've cleared up some things around cortisol and blood sugar and hormone balance. Do put blood sugar in the comments section. We will email you. We will reach out to you and ask you for your email, and then we will email you the balancing hormones in menopause guide. And in the meantime, you guys, if you're new to South Bay Wellness and you're doing all the right things, but you're still gaining weight, or you're snapping at the people you love, or you're tired and foggy and nothing seems to work anymore, then I want to tell you it's not your fault. You just haven't had the right map and the pieces put together in the right way. So I invite
Mhm.
you to reach out to us. We're happy to jump on a discovery call, help to work out why your body's out of balance, what's causing the symptoms, and how you can actually break free. So with that, I think, Carissa, any other words of wisdom here that you wish to add?
No, I think we kind of covered everything, and that was a beautiful way to end. And if anyone has any questions, just reach out, send us a message, or drop it here under the video, even if you're watching the replay.
Absolutely. And you guys, I do have a webinar tomorrow evening. So if you are new to South Bay Wellness, or you are wanting your family or friends to learn more about South Bay Wellness, then just drop us a message. We'll make sure that we give you a link to the webinar that's taking place tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to dive into the True Wellness Framework, dive into how people get stuck. So it's a great way to get to learn more about what we do and how we do it. And with that, everyone, take a deep breath. You just brought
Mhm.
cortisol levels down. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.